Alrighty, welcome into the Gary Ayd Show here on the Cave, cavetalkradio.com and the Cave Talk Radio app. It's great to have you aboard. Gary Ayd here solo. And before we get into the show, just a quick update as to why I'm solo. So Rich Anselmo had an issue last week. He almost choked. And he was in the hospital for a couple of days. He's home now and under doctor's orders not to speak for a few days. It's going to be reevaluated on Wednesday. So hopefully we'll have an update for you at that point. But basically, I just wanted to give everyone an update. He will not be with us this week. That is certain. Hopefully he'll be with us again, in the near future. Obviously, we're all wishing Rich a speedy and healthy recovery. There's no question about that. So I just wanted to open with that. Now, as far as the opening rant today. So it kind of ties into what I opened the show with on Monday. So Monday, I talked about the Lamar Jackson situation and sort of how it's been materializing over these last couple of weeks and months. And, one thing that I think kind of has spawned from that is something we've been seeing, I think, more and more amongst athletes, particularly NFL athletes. The players desperately want guaranteed contracts, fully guaranteed contracts, clearly. And Jackson, chief among them, right? Watson got that weird contract. The rest of the NFL is fighting tooth and nail to avoid that becoming the precedent. And Jackson, who does not have an agent, is trying to make that the precedent. Okay, fine. So with that said, where am I going with that? So that's kind of a rehash of last week. Well, there's been some comments that from other players, and I forget who it was, but I read one that said Patrick Mahomes signed that BS deal because it was a long contract and not fully guaranteed. And then Watson gets this precedent-setting deal. Jackson wants to reset the precedent because everyone wants those guaranteed contracts. And basically, the NFL's owners are racist, was the punchline. So here's the thing. Look, when you start throwing out the race card, it becomes an excuse, or it becomes a point that you're trying to something you're trying to point out to assert the fact that you're being wronged in some way. That's more what it is. That's what it is. It's not an excuse. It's something you're using to try to point out the fact that you are being wronged. And being wronged is basically the building block of being a victim, right? To be a victim of anything, you have to be wronged by definition. So it makes you sick, though, when you hear NFL players talking like that, or anyone of high accomplishment. You are the furthest thing away in the world from a victim if you're a professional athlete. The ultimate in opposite of victim of the world not owing you a thing is being a professional athlete. The gifts it takes to be a professional athlete, the physical blessings from God that it takes to even have a chance to do that, coupled with, the immense amount of work and dedication that it took for you to get there and maximize those talents, and all the people that had to come across your life and everything that had to go right. The idea that someone who's achieved that is a victim is preposterous to me. I mean, it doesn't compute. It's wrong in every way. It truly is. And the thing that frustrates me is using the race card, I'll just call it that, the race card, as a reason why. Well, that doesn't jive. First of all, we know the statistics of NFL players, something like 70-something% are African American. Well, that makes sense. They're generally the best athletes, and in a lot of cases, and in a lot of cases, there's also cultural proclivity or interest in pursuit of particular sports. You hear baseball talk all the time about how it doesn't have enough African American participation. Well, it's got plenty of participation from other ethnic heritage. And that's just the way things are. It's not right. It's not wrong. And it doesn't mean that if there were more Hispanics playing in the NFL, if playing football, there would be more NFL players. That's probably true. It's just the way everything breaks, right? It's just how it is. There's nothing right or wrong about it. It just is. Um, now, but it is. So the idea that an owner who employs these men and who pays them in most cases a lot of money. Now I know there's a lot of NFL players who are kind of cannon fodder who play 2 years, practice squad guys, bottom of the roster, special teams. I get that. You know, the NFL is different than other sports in that regard. There are a lot of guys who really don't make an absurd amount of money when you factor in their tax rate, how many hands are in the cookie jar, agents and everything else, and the short time span in which they're earning their money. Someone who makes $500,000 or even $1 million or $2 million in their NFL career, which there's a lot of those guys. When you take all that stuff out, it's really not that much money. It's not money to retire on. It's money to buy like a nice house or a couple of things like that, make some solid investments, but it's you're going to still work. I think that it just it rubs people the wrong way when athletes complain, professional athletes complain. Because the truth of the matter is they got nothing to complain about in the grand scheme of things. And, you know, the other thing you hear a lot about is injuries. Well, I have to tell you, injuries are definitely a part of life. And they are definitely a bigger part of life for NFL players. But more than that, they worry about the long-term health ramifications. Look, if you're going to achieve anything great in life, sacrifice is part of it. Now, there's different types of sacrifices. There's health sacrifice, which, you know, is what they're talking about here, and it's a valid thing. Look, you probably will have long-term health ramifications from playing in the NFL for a long time. You probably will. It makes perfect sense that you would. But there are benefits to playing in the NFL for a long time too, financial and otherwise. I mean, if you are a relatively well-known NFL player, you know what happens? You get other opportunities that produce a lot of money, in some cases more than you earned as a player after the fact. Take someone like Tony Romo, take someone like Greg Olson, take someone like Eric Allen. I mean, there's a long list of these guys. Tom Jackson made a great career as a broadcaster. You know, so there's a million of these people. And that's just in broadcasting. Speaking engagements, product endorsements, opportunity to go into business with people who just want to use your name to kind of target market and add publicity. There's a lot of benefits that comes with having been a professional athlete. In this case, we're talking about NFL players. And the other thing is sacrifice is part of life to achieve anything substantial, no matter your vocation. I know a guy who's a broadcaster who's in his 60s, late 60s, I think, mid to late 60s, Stu. And Stu has never made the major leagues as a broadcaster. He's risen as high as AAA and has never been able to get married. He's never bought a house. He's never had kids. He's lived in like 30 places, all chasing his version of greatness, trying to reach the highest level he can in his chosen vocation. And he's reached higher than a lot of us do. AAA is nothing to sneeze at in this business. It's not. Anyone that's been in this business any amount will tell you that. But that is the price he's chosen to pay to chase this. People who ask any big time broadcaster, someone who has made it to the highest levels. Ask Mike Breen, ask Marv Albert, ask Kevin Harlan, ask any of these guys, Joe Buck. How many birthdays did they miss? How many anniversaries did they miss? How many holidays? How many times were they not there to hang out with their friends? They just wanted to go out and have a beer, but they were on the road traveling from Milwaukee to LA to do a second game in 3 nights. How many sacrifices have they made to be at that level? Yeah, we see the fun, we see the glory, and we know that they get paid beautifully for it. But there's a big sacrifice that goes into that. Are they complaining about it? Probably not. So I think these athletes are due for a little self introspection and a little, I guess the word is perspective on what their sacrifices are yielding them. It's not like they're empty sacrifices. We can't just discard the money you earn as a player and all the other opportunities that come from that after you retire as a player when we're considering the sacrifices that they're making with their health and their bodies and whatever else. Yes, those are real. I am not saying they don't exist, but what you are trading that for also is real. And look, if you want to tell me that you're willing to forego all that stuff for better long-term health, more power to you. That's a reasonable decision. But don't live the life, pick the fruit, and then go back and complain about the sacrifices you made. No. Take one or the other. There was a player for the Niners, Chris, and I forget his last name. He was like a safety, white guy. He was really good. He only played a couple of years. He might have made 1 or 2 Pro Bowls, and he retired at like 25 for this reason. And that's understandable. But don't play your whole career and then complain about this. It's just not okay. I'm not a fan of it at all. I'm really, truly not. And I think it rubs people the wrong way. I really do. By the way, I'm being told that was Richard Sherman who made that quote. So there you go. All right. Well, we're going to take a break. We got our question of the day coming up. But first, right now, it's time for our scoreboard. All right. So this is our local action scoreboard. I, of course, am Gary Ayd, and it was a busy early season week in local travel baseball as well as softball as the OC Smash and the OC Bombers combined for 25 games across 7 different squads. Collectively, the 7 distinct squads across the 2 organizations went a total of 16-9 on the weekend. The Smash were led by their 11U team, which went 3-1 and won their league tournament, with a 10U and 9U squad also showing well, going 2-0 and 1-0 respectively, the latter being a 9-2 victory in a scrimmage against Grit's 9U team. Grit is a big organization, so that's a big deal. The 11U squad, coached by Rich Oren, scored an impressive 30 runs against just 17 allowed over their 4 games. Brendan Dwyer helped lead the team to tournament victory, pacing them to a 12-2 win in their penultimate game against the Deck Dogs. That game, of course, the decisive game, Dwyer went 4 strong innings on the mound, allowing just 2 runs and walking 1. He also added an RBI in the final game, which was part of a 4-hit weekend that also included a home run for Dwyer. Other key performers in the title game included Goodwin Brody, who finished 4 for 4 with 3 runs scored and 2 RBI, as well as Luke Harowitz, who totaled 2 hits, 2 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. And Jordan Luis had a big day, going 3 for 4 with 2 runs and 2 RBIs. Coming up in 60 seconds, OC Bombers scores are coming your way, along with some stats and notes from the week that was with the Bombers. I'm Gary Ayd. Stay with us. Back after this with the Bombers update here on The Cave.
Coffee Lovers Middletown is now officially home to the home run of our favorite beverage, Days Coffee. Days' patented blend contains approximately 85% less caffeine than other coffees, which makes it better for you, yet unlike decaf coffee, still gives you that great pickup and tastes amazing. Formulated by a retired cancer pathologist, Dr. Grant Lee, Days Coffee is fermented with a patented enzyme that until now required a complex and thus expensive sourcing and production process. With Dr. Lee's formulation, this enzyme's great health benefits can now be brought to your cup quicker, easier, and cheaper than ever before. Here's how you get a hold of this game-changing cup of joe. Go over to radioonlydeals.com and get a $4 gift certificate to Days Coffee for just $2. That's radioonlydeals.com to buy your single-use digital gift certificate for Days Coffee. Radioonlydeals.com. That's radioonlydeals.com. Enjoy the preferred coffee of the Gary Ayd Show. Enjoy Days Coffee.
All righty, welcome back to our local action scoreboard recap. The OC Bombers were headlined this weekend by a 5-0 showing from their second-year 10U squad, and that squad went on to win their tournament, obviously, and a 5-1 tournament-winning performance from the 12U teams. So two teams combining for 10 wins against one loss, two league championships, or two tournament championships, I should say. So great job by them. The 12U Bombers were just hitting. I mean, they just flat hit. 362 as a team, along with a 535 on base percentage. Bethany French stood out individually, tallying a 2.58 ERA and a 667 batting average with 2 home runs, 3 triples, and a single throughout the tournament. Emma Springer and Vienna Conklin also earned Player of the Week recognition. Springer put up a 500 batting average, 750 on base percentage, while striking out 11 and allowing just 1 hit and 2 unearned, 1 earned run across 6.5 innings pitched. Conklin, meanwhile, totaled a 667 batting average to go along with an 846 on base percentage, while also allowing just 1 hit and striking out 14 over 6 innings pitched. Further coverage of the Athlete of the Week for the Smashing Bombers will air tomorrow and Wednesday, respectively. Be sure to tune into my show, 10 to noon, here from Emma Springer, Vienna Conklin, Bethany French, Joey DiGiglio, and Brendan Dwyer, exclusively here on cavetalkradio.com and, of course, the Cave Talk Radio app. This is The Cave, Orange County's conversation station. It's time to take a break. We'll come right back. We got our question of the day next here on The Gary Ayd Show on The Cave.
St. Francis is shuttering its entire athletic program. I am KO. Back in a minute with your sports question of the day.
You've been working hard, doing the right thing and paying your taxes and putting your hard-earned money in the Medicare piggy bank all your life. And now it's time to break the piggy bank and get something back. Medicare. If you didn't know it, Medicare is health insurance for people over 65, and you've paid for it with your tax dollars. Medicare plans now have more benefits than ever. That's good news, especially if you're like me and looking forward to paying as little as possible for good health insurance. Call and find out what Medicare plan is best for you. Save your time. It's valuable. We've already done the research for you. And in one quick phone call, you can learn how to get the best Medicare plan designed exactly for you. Hey, it's one of the most important decisions in your life. Let us help you through it. Here's our number. Call 65 Plus Medicare now at 855-301-5506, 855-301-5506. That's 855-301-5506.
Brooklyn's St. Francis College is closing down its entire athletic program. The Terriers' Director of Athletics, Irma Garcia, said the decision was not one she ever anticipated making during her time at St. Francis. In a public statement, Dennis Salamoni, the chair of the school's Board of Trustees, said the main reasons for the decision include increased operating expenses, flattening revenue streams, and plateauing enrollment, due in part to a shrinking pool of high school graduates in the aftermath of COVID. Question: was your alma mater negatively impacted or unaffected by the decreasing number of post-COVID era high school graduates?
You know, Rich and I talked about this at length about a week ago, but just to kind of rehash it, this is a load of garbage. I don't buy their reasoning whatsoever. What do you mean high school graduates are declining? Are maybe they're declining in an absolute sense, because I know we had a population decline, a birth rate decline rather, the last few years. But that shouldn't have hit the high schools yet. But the truth of the matter is this. This school is making some excuses. The bottom line is this. You are not hurting for enrollment because there's not enough people to enroll. You're hurting for enrollment because your prices are stupid. You're hurting for enrollment because you haven't improved your offering in years or decades. You're hurting for enrollment because people are finally coming up with the correct logic that college is not a great purchase. It's not. It's a horrible purchase. If you are if you're a sensible person, going to college is really a risky endeavor. You're talking 20, 30, 40,000, maybe more per year in a lot of cases. unless you do it the cheap way. You go to junior college for 2 years, live at home, go to a state school. But even still, you're probably graduating, even doing that these days with 30,000, 50,000 in student loan debt, unless you pay for it as you go through. And it's just not necessary to make a decent living. It's just not. Now, in certain fields it is, sure. But there's so many majors in college that absolutely add no bottom line value to your earning power when you graduate than if you didn't have them at all. My own degree, communications. What is a communications degree going to get me? Now, I'm in my own field because I've chosen to be so, but I've made a lot of sacrifices, which I'm not going to get into here. But suffice to say, I could have done everything I've done without this degree, without a college degree. I could have done everything I've done in my career, 100%. Now, if I was an engineer, if I was a doctor, if I was a lawyer, if I was a teacher, I guess, yeah, those professions require specific degrees. You could argue that some of them shouldn't. I believe teachers, true teachers, the word teacher means to be able to explain. Being able to explain something in a way that someone else can understand it. As long as you understand the material at a high enough level to do that, you don't have to be a subject matter expert. You don't have to be a mathematician to explain how to solve for X to a 12-year-old. You have to be good at explaining and understand it to a certain level. You don't have to be a published historian to explain to a high schooler, what the causes of the Civil War were. You just have to be able to explain it in a way that they understand. I think one of the reasons education has become such a difficult field is because we have required too high a level of education. You need a master's degree to be an adjunct professor at most junior colleges. And by the way, those jobs pay almost nothing. We're talking $20,000 a year to teach one class or something a semester. I mean, really less than you would make working part-time as a delivery driver. It's true. But they want a master's degree for that. I'm sorry. People are beginning to get wise to that fact. At one point, this was a differentiator. And just like anything else, once the market becomes saturated with something, and it's now saturated with people with degrees, it's not the differentiator it used to be. And it took a generation or so to catch on. My generation, the millennial generation, we kind of fell on this sword. We are inundated with student loan debt because our parents' generation, the boomer generation, and rightly so, believed that college was the elixir to a better life. Because during their time, and the world they grew up in, it was. And maybe at one point, post their generation, it was for a while, but it changed during our generation, the millennial generation. But we fell on that. And furthermore, because of the economics of how student loans work, those things are guaranteed by the federal government. They're paid to the schools. So the schools have no incentive to be competitive on price, to improve their offerings, to curl and remove programs that aren't leading to jobs that have a positive ROI. They have no reason to do any of that because they're getting their money anyway. But now what's happening is the current generation, Gen Z, as they're called, they are understanding, because a lot of them were raised by older millennials or were raised by people who experienced what I just described. They are realizing, wait a minute, that's dumb. So a lot of them are choosing not to go that route, smartly so. And instead of adjusting, innovating, being competitive on price, these bloated institutions, of which St. Francis was probably one of them, they are instead just saying, oh, let's just cut an expense. We'll just cut athletics. They're kicking the can down the road because the cause of this is not the cost of the programs itself. It's the cost of the bureaucracy, the administrative state that has grown in these schools as they've gotten fat and happy on the free government money. And that's what's causing this. If you want to fix the problem, really fix the problem, You got to get more efficient in your operation. You got to get more competitive on your price. You got to get more honed in on offering things that people, when they graduate, will see a positive ROI. And that's all doable. It's just hard. And you actually have to take accountability for how awful you've been at administering your school for all these years. And they don't want to do that. Not just St. Francis. This is an epidemic across all of academia, particularly higher education. And that's the cause of all this. So this athletic program is a casualty of an administration that doesn't want to be accountable and nothing else. And it's sad. It really is. Because what it's going to do is it's going to buy them a couple of years to continue to misbehave. And then they're going to cut something else because the problem's still going to be there. The problem is it's expensive to go there. There's not a guaranteed ROI or even a reasonably expected ROI. And what ends up happening is people are finally figuring out, you know what? I can go to trade school. I can go to junior college. I can go to a state school. I can become something without a college education. I could get a CDL. There's so many other ways to make a healthy, good living without taking on that type of debt. And people are finally figuring it out. And sooner or later, schools are going to figure out that people have figured it out, and they're going to start charging less. They're going to start being competitive on price again. They're going to have to for their own existence. It's just taken a long time, and it's frustrating to me. So there's your question of the day. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little NBA, specifically Anthony Davis playing with LeBron James. James back last night. Not the result the Lakers were looking for. We'll discuss that next. It's the Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at crazy low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts at over 500 different airlines. Plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best price for you. Call SmartFares today and get ready to see the world with a fat wallet.
800-370-2460. 800-370-2460. 800-370-2460. That's 800-370-2460.
Come on, you watch the news. Be prepared to pay more taxes. Then if you owe back taxes or haven't filed in a few years, get ready. The IRS, the largest collection agency in the world, will be coming after you with the power to collect taxes by any means they want to. Hey, they can freeze your bank account, your passport, even padlock your business. Oh, good times. Look, if the IRS claims you owe them $5,000 or more in back taxes and they're coming after you, don't panic. Call my friends at Get a Tax Lawyer first. Their job is to negotiate with the IRS and save you money. They're experts at it. That's all they do, and you can trust them. In some cases, they have reduced a $50,000 tax bill to less than $1,000. If you owe the IRS $5,000 or more in back taxes, call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-649-8617. 800-649-8617. 800-649-8617. That's 800-649-8617.
All right, we're back here on the Gary Ayd Show. Great to have you aboard. Gary Ayd flying solo this week. So I'm watching the Lakers the other day, and they ended up losing a game that they shouldn't have lost. They ended up losing in a way that they shouldn't have lost. So Anthony Davis has been playing like a beast since LeBron James went out. And since Davis has been the only, quote, star in the lineup, he has thrived. There were 13 games where LeBron missed, and Davis played, I believe, 10 of those. And over those 10, he averaged 30 points a game. The Lakers reached 500 for the first time all year. And then LeBron comes back against the Bulls. He comes off the bench. Now, he did play 30 minutes, but he came off the bench. And going into this game, Patrick Beverley, who's just a gnat, right? He's just a annoying insect on the court in comparative terms, right? He's just A bug that bites and yaps and yells and screams, but appreciably he's just a guy in the NBA, right? That's what he is. He was talking absolute junk to Anthony Davis before the game, saying, hey, we're going to knock you out of the playoffs. And Davis responded, he can come try. You like to see that. Good. Well, the Bulls beat him. They beat him by 10. And Davis, after engaging in this trash talk with Beverly, comes up so small, does almost nothing. Beverly had his normal-ish Beverly game, or good game for him. He had 10 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds. But Davis played 36 minutes and only scored 15 points. And the crazy thing is, he was 6 for 8. So why did he stop being assertive? People say, well, maybe they didn't get him the ball. When you're that good and you're playing that good, you get the ball. It comes to you. It's like a magnet. And if it doesn't, you demand it or you go get it. This is not acceptable. 36 minutes, 15 points. What happened is he fell back in to his follower mentality, even though LeBron was coming off the bench. So this is the problem with Davis. He falls into this secondary role just instinctively whenever LeBron or another star is out there. You might remember Davis, when him and Cousins were together before Cousins' career-altering injury, Cousins was most nights being the lead guy. Davis just has this tendency when he plays with another big player to just kind of fall to the background. And the Lakers can't afford him or LeBron to fall to the background. The bottom line is, if they're going to have any chance against anybody, both of them have to play great basketball together. And they managed to do it in 2020. Why Davis can't rediscover that, I don't know. But it drives you crazy. It drives you nuts. LeBron, for what it's worth, 19 points, which was actually a game high. Think about that. He had a game high. He hasn't played in a month. He's a 20-year veteran. He came off the bench, and he led the team in scoring. Like, that shouldn't have happened. Davis needs to lead this team. And by the way, LeBron probably wants Davis to lead this team. LeBron doesn't want to do all the heavy lifting anymore. But it's very, very disappointing. It truly, truly is. It makes you very upset. If you're a fan of this team, if you're a fan of this league, you like to see great players play great together. And look, it's not just the Lakers that are having a hard time doing this, right? Let's take a look. The Clippers have never really fully figured out the George and Kawhi thing all these years. The Kyrie and Luka thing has not worked out to this point. Probably isn't going to. Luka very frustrated. Looks like he's suspended the next game. It's hard to do. And this is what I always tell people. Having a, quote, super team and being a super team are two very different things. They really, truly are. You can have great name talent. Look at the Rockets in the late 90s, early 2000s. They had Hakeem Olajuwon. They had Scottie Pippen. They had Clyde Drexler. They had Charles Barkley. What did they achieve? Nothing, right? Nothing. Now, you could say, well, they were all old at that point. Okay, fine. Let's look at the Lakers in 2010 or whatever it was. You had Dwight Howard. You had Kobe Bryant. You had Pau Gasol. You had Steve Nash. Well, Steve Nash was old and he had back problems. Okay, what about the other three? What happened? You can have great talent and not be a great team. It's very easy to do. It's very hard for great players to play great together, because as a great player, your instinct, at least in basketball, is usually to have the ball in your hand and be the nucleus of the cell, so to speak. But when you have another guy who's your equal or even superior, you're just not used to that. Because if you're a great player, think about this. If you're a great player in the NBA, think of how much better than everyone else you are at every previous level in most cases, in almost all cases, right? I mean, so the idea that someone who is capable of being a number 1 or a number 2 option on an NBA roster, the idea of them taking the ball out of their hands, playing second fiddle, playing off ball, doing little things, like, it's not an ego trip. They just don't know how to play that way a lot of times because they never have, right? Like, just because think of it like this, you could be the most accomplished coach of all time. Look at Phil Jackson, right? You can be the most accomplished coach of all time. You know how to mold a team, mold a roster together, but you don't know how to build a roster necessarily. You put them in a different job, it doesn't work the same. When you put a great player who's used to playing a particular way, because that's what great players do, you put them in a different role, a different job, it doesn't automatically work. It's hard work. It's why the Heat took a long time to gel. It's why a lot of teams those net teams never quite figured it out, because, and this is the problem with load management and injury, being resting guys too much for petty injuries. When you put a team like that together, particularly when you do it shotgun style, which is how most of these get done now, trades and things like that, it takes a lot of time on the court to find that balance. It's not lightning in the bottle. LeBron and the Heat made it look that way, but even them, they went through some early growing pains. They had the advantage of doing it in free agency, which meant they had a whole training camp and a whole off season and a whole preseason and regular season to figure it all out. A lot of these teams haven't had that opportunity. When the Nets put their team together, Kevin Durant was out for the next year. They never had that opportunity, right? So you need to consider how big of a deal it is. Acquiring Kyrie Irving and pairing him with Luka Doncic in the middle of the season is great, but this shouldn't surprise anyone that they've struggled. People say, well, yeah, Kyrie is this, he's that. It's not about Kyrie being a flat earther or being a prima donna or being, going to all these teams or being a cancer. That some of that might be true. A lot of it's not. That's immaterial, though. What it is it's hard to put two great players on the roster together, particularly when they play appreciably similar games as those two do, and expect it to just work. You give it an off season where they really try to make it work, and you give it a coach who tries to think it through in a way to make it work. Yeah, it probably will work. Because the truth is, getting back to the beginning of all this, in order to win in the NBA at the highest level, you need your stars to play together. You need that to work. The teams with the great talent that fits and plays well together are the teams that win. But that second piece, that fit and playing well together, it's not magic. It's not just roll the ball out there and we're going to figure it out because we're great players. Everyone in the NBA is really good. And every team has at least one, in a lot of cases, multiple other great players. So it's more than just that. You have to make the fit. It's still a team sport, even though it is the sport for sure where one great individual can make the biggest difference. There's no question about that. One individual does not win a championship. One great, truly great, LeBron, Kobe, not even Jordan, really, a little bit Jordan, but LeBron did this, Kobe did this, Duncan did this. Sometimes you could have one great player on an otherwise awful team. Duncan never really did this. And just they're a playoff team by the sheer greatness of that one player. Luka kind of did this last year. But that's about as far as one great player can take you, is just make you a relevant playoff team. You need multiple great players playing together to win an NBA championship. You just do. It's all there is to it. And the Lakers aren't getting that right now. Whenever LeBron plays, Davis takes a subservient role. Whenever LeBron doesn't play, Davis becomes the beast he needs to be when LeBron does play again. They need to do it together. That's what they did in 2020. That's why they won. They had a really good roster around them. I think they've done a pretty good job of building a similar quality roster around those two. They didn't have it early in the year. I think they do now. But they're not playing well together. And I put a lot of that on Darvin Ham. I do. Look, I think Darvin Ham's an adequate coach. I think he's an okay coach. He's not a great coach. He's not terrible, but he's not inspiring. The only thing he's done to me that earned kudos is now irrelevant, which was, I believe, he really molded Russell Westbrook into a very strong sixth man. I think he did a very good job with that. And he said he was going to, and he lived up to his word. I think he did a great job with that. But beyond that, his rotations are weird. He doesn't play guys that should play. Lonnie Walker comes to mind. And he doesn't seem to have an answer for how to get LeBron and Davis to play together effectively, consistently. And that's the biggest question, right? That's the biggest challenge. It truly is. And it's my opinion that until someone figures that out, this team is going nowhere. And it's also my opinion that if that was figured out going into the playoffs, this Laker team could play with anyone in the West. I really do believe that. I know it sounds crazy to talk about a team that has a sub 500 record, 75 games or whatever it is into the season, about being a team capable of beating anyone in their conference. But if those two play together properly, if a coach could figure that out, if those two could figure that out, look, the West is wide open. What did we see from Denver recently? They lost a bunch of games to poor teams. Sacramento is a great offensive team, but they can't stop anybody. Phoenix, you don't know how healthy they're going to be, and you don't know how they're going to gel because Durant's barely played with them, right? So there's a lot of question marks. The Clippers are barely 500. They're always offensively challenged, injury prone, right? I mean, if the Lakers put together 2 months of good basketball and those two figured it out, why couldn't it be them? The West is wide open, but I'm not confident. I don't believe they can do that because they haven't shown the ability to, which is unfortunate because it's all that's lacking. And Frank Vogel is an excellent coach who lost his job prematurely and irresponsibly, in my opinion. And I think the Lakers would be a far better team right now with Frank Vogel than they are with Darvin Ham coaching them. That's just my opinion as well. Anyway, so there you have it. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We're going to wrap up the hour. We'll go around the league, take a look at some other teams, other games. There's, I think, 8 games in the NBA tonight. We'll take a look at some of those. And coming up in hour 2, we're going to have our top 5 as well as a little news you can use, more local scoreboard action, a lot of stuff to get to. It's the Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you're ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with a free call. 800-741-9557. 800-741-9557. 800-741-9557. That's 800-741-9557. If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers. If you administer insulin 3 or more times per day or use an insulin pump, call now and learn how a CGM can help you.
Painless. No more pricking my finger.
No finger pricks.
Convenience. They delivered it free and they took care of all the paperwork.
You can reduce pain right away. Plus, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you spend more time in range. And if you have insurance, you can get a new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. Call now and get free shipping of your new CGM. Plus, we'll bill your insurance for you. 800-826-5884. 800-826-5884. 800-826-5884. That's 800-826-5884.
All right, a little bit of interesting NFL news here. There is an update in the ongoing Brian Flores lawsuit. The ex-Dolphins head coach saw mixed results. This is according to ProFootballRumors.com. mixed results in a ruling on the matter of arbitration being used to settle his claims against the league and a number of its teams. A federal judge in Manhattan ruled that Flores can pursue his racial discrimination suit against the NFL and the Broncos, Giants, and Texans in open court. This was detailed by the Associated Press. The NFL has attempted to keep the matter an internal run and handle Flores' claims through arbitration. That will be the route taken to determine his case against the Dolphins, however. So arbitration will be used to determine the Dolphins case, but the others I mentioned can be in open court. Co-plaintiffs Steve Wilkes and Ray Horton joined the suit. That those rulings are going to apply to them as well. Those two added complaints against the Cardinals and Titans, respectively. And for decisions affecting them in the past, Wilkes argued in the suit that Arizona hired him in 2008 as a bridge coach with no long-term prospects of retaining the position. Horton has alleged the Titans conducted a sham head coaching interview with him in 2016. So this continues on from there. There's no word if Roger Goodell will be overseeing personally the arbitration, but many expect that he will. Look, this stuff is touchy, right? It really is. It's legally touchy. It is emotionally touchy. And the fact of the matter is this. There's a lot that we don't know and never will know. And there's a lot that is unprovable. Like, because the basis of this suit is racial discrimination, right? You can't prove that, really, because what is it? I mean, that's the first question. How do you define what racial discrimination is? It sounds easy, but it's really not. The true definition of racism is just not what is usually how it plays out in the real world. The true hard and fast definition of any kind of discriminatory or prejudice behavior is basically just an illogical disdain or hatred for someone based on their ethnicity or skin color. Well, that is not always or hardly ever explicitly expressed in a way where it's clear cut, right? So it's the same reason why it's hard a lot of times to prove rape cases, because unless there is overwhelming physical evidence, which usually has to be attained early on before it, literally washes away, it's hard to prove, because you have to prove intent. You almost have to be able to look into what was in that person's head and heart at the time that they did that. And so that's why it's a tough thing to go. It's a tough road to go down. And I think this suit is more destructive than constructive for that reason. I really do. I'm not a fan of this. I think it's grasping at straws. And this idea, this ongoing campaign by a lot of different forces, players, ex-players, coaches, ex-coaches, to paint the NFL and its ownership in particular as a racist, bigoted lot, I think is both off base and destructive. People say, well, why aren't there more black coaches? Well, where do the coaches usually come from? Usually come from former players, right? People that played in a lot of cases, not always, but in a lot of cases. And in the cases where they don't come from former players, they're usually coming from people that were never good football players that became coaches almost immediately. And like we were saying before, generally speaking, the best athletes, the best players tend to be African American. And when you are one of the better players and you have a long, in this day and age now, when you have a long, successful NFL career, what you earn in that career makes coaching not necessarily a financially appealing endeavor, because let's be honest, coaching is long hours. And to get to be an NFL head coach, you have to start in most cases from the ground up. You become a position coach. Maybe let's just say you Patrick Willis. Just use him as a random example. If he was going to try to be a head coach, he would have to be a linebacker coach first, probably. Then have to have some success. Maybe he'd be lucky and get to be a defensive coordinator. At some point, he gets to be a head coach. There's a lot of people competing for those 32 jobs, right? It just is. And you have to pay your dues. You have to be lucky. You have to be in the right place at the right time. And then you have to succeed when you get that first opportunity. It's it's a daunting task. And if you've made 40, 50 million or more in your playing career, 30 million, 25 million, and you have lucrative broadcast options, you have lucrative businesses, you have lucrative speaking engagements, you have lucrative opportunities to be a consultant or a public figure for some organization that pays you well, and you're home all the time with your family, you're working far less. I mean, why would you not do that? Why would you go into coaching and work 80 hours a week? Why would you do that for less money? Always away from your family. You know, one of the reasons guys retire, besides just they can't do it anymore, is because they want to spend more time with their family. How many times have you heard that? I know it's a cliche, but a lot of times it's true. And you're not spending more time with your family if you retire as a player and become a coach. That is the definition of going from the frying pan into the fryer. 100%. No question about it. So a lot of the reason why there's not as many black coaches, I believe, is because there's not as many of them going into it or trying to go into it, because a lot of them have better options, because a lot of them were great or even just good players. You only have to, I'm not even talking about being someone like Patrick Willis. If you're just a guy that played 7 years in the NFL, you probably made a minimum of 15 to 20 million, right? In most cases. So if that's the case, $12 million, and you were decent with your money, you have all these other potential options that when you're retired, coaching's not a great attractive choice. It's just not. And so I think a lot of it is natural process. I think people are just choosing not to do it. I really don't think race is a deciding factor in most cases here, because would it make sense? Just play devil's advocate for a second. If I'm an owner, right, and I have a roster that is a typical NFL composition of 70 or so percent African American, and I have the chance to hire a qualified, good African American coach to coach that roster, wouldn't I do that? Of course I would. Maybe there's just not that many choices. People say, well, what about Eric Bieniemy? What about him? Well, there's reason to say, fair or not, look, he's a offensive coordinator, right? Well, he's the offensive coordinator of Patrick Mahomes and working alongside Andy Reid, who is probably the best offensive coach in the NFL in the last half century. So certainly one of them. So it's reasonable for someone to say, well, how much of that was him and how much of that was him being in the right place at the right time with the right people around him? It certainly could be some Tom Moore going on. You ask, well, who's Tom Moore? Well, that's a good question. He was the offensive coordinator in title under Peyton Manning and Tony Dungy. So realistically, he was head cheerleader for the offense, because Peyton Manning was the offensive coordinator of those teams, right? In reality. So he never even pursued head coaching jobs, and probably because A, he knew what he wanted, and probably B, he just, wasn't going to get serious consideration, because people are going to be like, well, you were the offensive coordinator for Peyton Manning. What did you really do? And it's a valid question. It's the same reason I said Adam Gase was a dumb hire. Oh, he helped Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning didn't need him. Are you kidding me? It's like this idiot Nate, what's his name? Nathaniel, whatever his name is. The Broncos fired after 10 or whatever games that the Jets hired to recruit Aaron Rodgers. Oh, he was helping Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers doesn't need this guy. Come on. What are we talking about here? It's insane to even say out loud. You can't even say it with a straight face. That's why I'm cracking up over here as I say it. Oh, he helped Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning threw 400 touchdowns before you even met this guy. You don't need him. Come on, man. Please. Come on. So I think Eric Bieniemy suffers from a little of that. I guess my point is, for every black coach that someone will point to as aggrieved or passed over because of inherent discrimination by owners in the NFL, I will point to a very logical, easily attributable reason as to why that person wasn't hired. I will. You could challenge me on that. I'm glad to accept all challenges because, in my opinion, in big business like that, there's no room for that type of petty thinking. And any person who owns a team like this, pays those type of expenses, generates those type of revenues, is that public facing. And in a lot of cases with these guys are first generation billionaires who built their own fortune. Jerry Jones is a perfect example of that. They're not built to think this way. They can't. Even if they privately held certain prejudice perspectives. And you can never tell what's in the deepest part of someone's heart or head, but they wouldn't act on those. It doesn't make sense to. There's too much at stake to act like that. It just is. And generally he's a smart businessman with a lot of good, smart people around them advising them on these decisions. They're not happening in a vacuum. It's not like George Steinbrenner ranting and raving, firing Billy Martin in the middle of a game and hiring in the middle of the next game. This isn't the 1970s Bronx Zoo anymore. It's just not. It's just not. And we have to get over that. All right. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll do our scoreboard and we will continue on. We have more to get to. It's the Gary Ayd Show. Back after this here on The Cave.
Are you like me? You have health insurance, but you don't have dental insurance. Do you need to get to the dentist right away? Maybe you need an implant or some other major service. Well, I found a dental insurance plan that's just right for you. It's called Spirit Dental. Spirit Dental offers a $100 lifetime deductible, a huge network of dentists. And here's the best part. There's no waiting periods. Yeah, that means you can call right now and have real dental insurance for you and your family tomorrow and get that immediate coverage you want. Spirit Dental has plans for just a few dollars a day, up to $5,000 annual maximum, and coverage for implants. Whatever age you are, the dental insurance you need is a free phone call away. Now don't wait and be sure to ask about Spirit's vision plan. Here's the number: 800-631-9229. 800-631-9229. That's 800-631-9229.
Hey friend, life happens and you need money. What do? You call the special toll-free number we're about to give you. We will send you a link to your phone with details on how you can loan up to $5,000. Couldn't you use $5,000 to pay for your rent, pay grocery bills, get your car repaired, or whatever you need? It's up to you. We don't care. We're just here to lend you the money. And we'll lend people money with good, bad, or no credit at all. Of course, some terms and conditions apply, and you'll see those on the link we're going to send you. So if you need up to $5,000 maybe as soon as the next business day, call this number right now. We will text you a free link with details.
Paid for by Money Mutual. Call 800-586-7112. 800-586-7112. 800-586-7112. That's 800-586-7112.
All righty, welcome back to the Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave, and it's time now for a local action score recap. It was a busy early season week in the local travel baseball and softball scene as the OC Smash and the OC Bombers combined for 25 games across 7 different squads. Collectively, these 7 squads across the 2 organizations went a combined 16-9 on the weekend, so a very successful weekend. The Smash were led by their 11U team, which went 3-1 and won their tournament. And their 10U team and 9U squads also had good showings, 2-0 and 1-0 respectively, the latter being a 9-2 victory in a scrimmage against Grit 9's U team. So there you go. So Grit's a big organization, so that's a nice victory, albeit a scrimmage for that 9U squad. Very impressive stuff. Getting back to the 11U Smash squad, coached by Rich Oren, they scored an impressive 30 runs against 17 allowed over their 4 games. Brendan Dwyer helped lead the team to tournament victory, pacing them in a 12-2 victory in the decisive game against the Deck Dogs. He had 4 strong innings on the mound, allowing just 2 runs and walking 1. He also added an RBI in the final game, part of a 4-hit weekend for Dwyer, which also included the home run. Other key performers in the title game included Goodwin Brody, who finished 4 for 4 with 3 runs scored and 2 RBIs, as well as Luke Harowitz, who totaled 2 hits, 2 RBI, and 2 runs scored in the victory. And Johan Luis also had a big day, going 3 for 4 with 2 runs scored and 2 RBIs. Coming up in 60 seconds, we take a look at the OC Bombers scores, stats, and notes from the week that was here on the Gary Ayd Show on The Cave.
Coffee lovers, Middletown is now officially home to the home run of our favorite beverage, Days Coffee. Days patented blend contains approximately 85% less caffeine than other coffees, which makes it better for you, yet unlike decaf coffee, still gives you that great pickup and tastes amazing. Formulated by a retired cancer pathologist, Dr. Grant Lee, Days Coffee is fermented with a patented enzyme that until now required a complex and thus expensive sourcing and production process. With Dr. Lee's formulation, this enzyme's great health benefits can now be brought to your cup quicker, easier, and cheaper than ever before. Here's how you get a hold of this game-changing cup of joe. Go over to radioonlydeals.com and get a $4 gift certificate to Days Coffee for just $2. That's radioonlydeals.com to buy your single-use digital gift certificate for Days Coffee. Radioonlydeals.com. That's radioonlydeals.com. Enjoy the preferred coffee of the Gary Ayd Show. Enjoy Days Coffee.
Alrighty, the OC Bombers headlined this weekend by a 5-0 showing from their second-year 10U squad that won its tournament, as well as a 5-1 tournament winning performance from the 12U team. The 12U Bombers were just flat out hitting a .362 team batting average to go along with a .535 on-base percentage as a squad, and Bethany French stood out individually, tallying a 2.58 ERA and batting .667 on the tournament with 2 home runs, 3 triples, and a single to help lead her team to the tournament victory. Emma Springer and Vienna Conklin also earned Player of the Week recognition for the Bombers. Springer put up a .500 batting average, .750 on base percentage, and struck out, 11, and allowed just 1 hit and 2 unearned runs, 1 earned run over 6.5 innings pitched. Conklin, meanwhile, totaled an impressive .667 batting average to go along with an otherworldly .846 on base percentage. That's crazy, while allowing just 1 hit and striking out 14 over 6 innings pitched. Further coverage of our athletes of the week, including interviews from both the Smash and Bomber players that you just heard, will be heard throughout the week, tomorrow and Wednesday, respectively. Be sure to tune in to my show, The Gary Ayd Show, from 10 to noon, Monday to Friday. The next couple of days, you'll hear from Emma Springer, Vienna Conklin, Bethany French, Joey DiGiglio, and Brendan Dwyer. And that's exclusively here on cavetalkradio.com and the Cave Talk Radio app. This is The Cave, Orange County's conversation station, back in 2 minutes, or 4 minutes, I should say, with the top 5. All righty, welcome back in to the Gary Ayd Show here on the Cave, cavetalkradio.com, and the Cave Talk Radio app. Hour 2 upon us. Great to have you aboard. Gary Ayd here, flying solo this week. Hopefully, Rich and Selma will be back with us shortly. For those of you who didn't hear in hour 1, Rich nearly choked to death a few days ago, has been in the hospital for a couple of days, was released over the weekend. I think he got out sometime Sunday and is now at home recovering. Doctor's orders not to speak for a few days, so that obviously rules out doing a radio show. So we are hoping to have an update on him maybe Wednesday or Thursday to share beyond that. But he's home, hopefully recovering, and we hope to have him back soon. Get well soon, partner. We miss you. All right, let's with that said, let's go into, we're going to do the top 5, which we'll get to in a second. But over the break, got some breaking Lamar Jackson news. So I'm just going to read this because it relates to what we opened the show with again today. This is according to Jackson. It looks like on his Twitter feed. But this I'm getting this from a fantasy group. So take it for what it's worth, but it looks like it's quoting him directly from Twitter. So it says, quote, this is Lamar Jackson. I want to first thank you all for all of the love and support you consistently showed toward me. All of you are amazing, and I appreciate y'all so much. I want you to know not to believe everything you read about me. Let me personally answer your questions. This is what Jackson wrote on Twitter. In regards to my future plans, as of March 2nd, I requested a trade from the Ravens organization for which the Ravens have not been interested in meeting my value. Any and everyone that has ever met me or been around me knows I love the game of football, and my dream is to help a team win a Super Bowl. You are all great, but I had to make a business decision that was best for me, my family, and I. There you go. Or he said for best for my family and I, excuse me. No matter how far I go or where my career takes me, I'll continue to be close to my fans of Baltimore, Flock Nation, and the entire state of Maryland. It's worth noting that Jackson is slated to make $32.4 million under the non-exclusive franchise tag this year, but wants to join a team that can meet his asking price on a new deal, which, as we've discussed, is he wants it fully guaranteed, and it's over $40 million a year asking price. Well, he could have asked this question asked for a trade all he wants. There's crickets out there for a reason. No one's going to give him a fully guaranteed deal. I do think there would be teams that would give him the 40 plus million a year he wants if he came off the fully guaranteed part. But they are not, the league is not going to reset that precedent. I'd be very surprised if they did, because if Jackson wins this standoff, what's going to happen is it's going to make every future quarterback contract fully guaranteed or close to it with 40 and 50 and whatever million a year. Those numbers will just go up. Those will go up whether Jackson wins this or not. That's just the nature of it. But the league really, with its current structure, can't truly afford that. They can't. The position's already overvalued, overpaid, because it's not really overpaid. It's paid an absurd amount. It's overpaid by a percentage of what it takes up of the team cap, but it's what teams are willing to pay because of how important that position is. The other thing with Lamar Jackson that's worth keeping in mind, this is a mobile quarterback who relies on athleticism, who's now entering his mid and late 20s. This is not a guy that you necessarily want to have on a 10-year contract, 8-year contract. Yeah, Mahomes is mobile, but he's principally a pocket quarterback. Jackson can pass from the pocket, but he's principally a mobile quarterback. It's a big difference. And one is much more likely to age well than the other. And that's a factor here too. I think it's a smaller factor, but I think it's a factor. This is going to be a story to continue to watch. There's no question about it. It's the dominant story of the NFL offseason, and it's something to continue to keep an eye on. All right. Now, that said, let's get into today's top 5, which is Mets related, in honor of the release or the designation for assignment, I should say, of Darren Ruff. It got me thinking, what are the 5 roughest Yeah, I know. Bad joke, Gary. Boo. One of the 5 roughest Mets acquisitions in my lifetime. Here we go with the top 5.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time for King Talk Radio's Top 5.
Alrighty, there we have it. Thank you, Jack George. So what is the roughest, worst Met acquisitions of my lifetime? It's a long list. Jed Lowry comes to mind. Victor Zambrano comes to mind. They traded Scott Kazmir for him. I'm convinced they traded him because they also got Chris Bryant or Chris Benson, excuse me, not Chris Bryant, Chris Benson in that trade, aka Chris Benson's wife, who, if you don't remember, was really, really hot. So I'm convinced that they made that trade because the Wilpons wanted some extra front row seat eye candy at Shea Stadium, City Field. That's what I think. I think it was still Shea Stadium then. Anyway, there's a long list. So those are a couple that come off the mind. The Scott Kazmir trade, trading what was one of our better pitching prospects in some time at that point for essentially Chris Benson, his hot wife, and the wrong Zambrano, as I like to say. At the time, there was another pitcher named Carlos Zambrano who pitched for the Cubs. Victor Zambrano, I believe, was traded from what then were called the Devil Rays, now just the Rays. And that's where Kazmir ended up pitching a lot of his career. Let's just say they got the wrong Zambrano. Carlos Zambrano was really good. Almost fringe Cy Young candidate good for a few years, in fact. Victor Zambrano probably has a career ERA around 5. Not so good. Chris Benson, a little bit better than that, but high 4s, mid 4s. Also not that great. That's what they traded basically a stud prospect for. So that was stupid. High level dumb. This Darren Ruff thing, not good. Hence what precipitated it, but I don't think it's going to make the list. This is a long list. Jason Bay, disaster. Kaz Matsui, remember him? Mini Godzilla, as he was called? Oops. Whoopsies. How'd Robbie Alomar go for you? That went well. Oh, it's such a long list. We mentioned Jed Lowry. Whoops. Robinson Cano. Yee. Oopsies. It's just so many of these, man. And I'm going to say this. I think I was talking about this on Facebook today with a friend. I think the Mets are going to look back on not consummating the contract with Correa as a big whoopsie as well. I think they desperately need him. I think there's a big hole in their lineup right now at DH. Ruff was awful, designated for assignment. Vogelbach has been blah. Nimmo's going to be out a little while. This is not a great lineup, guys. It's an okay lineup. It's decent. It'll be a lot better when Nimmo gets back. There's no question. But it's pretty top heavy. Without Correa there, you got, I don't know exactly the batting order, but rattling it off, you got McNeil, Alonso, Marte, Nimmo when he gets back. Right? I'm forgetting one or two, but it's not a great lineup. It's decent, but it's got holes. I'm concerned about it. I'm not excited about it. I wish they were bringing Alvarez. I wish they were bringing Beatty. I don't think they're going to have either on the roster when the season starts in a couple days. I could be wrong about that still, but I think that's the way it's looking. Anyway, so that's just that could be another I guess not a faulty acquisition, a faulty non-acquisition. Not consummating the Correa deal. Obviously, the Bobby Bonilla thing didn't work out. There's just a long, long list. It's a painfully long list, as a matter of fact. There's just so many. I'm just trying to think of a few other specific ones. It's one of those things where there's so many that you forget them all because you just kind of go numb to the pain and the agony of it and the stupidity of it over the years. Um, Mo Vaughn didn't exactly work out. Um, one that did, and a lot of people kind of feel it didn't, but one that did, in my view, is Carlos Beltran. I think that went pretty well. I really do. All right, so let me put these in some kind of order for you. Number one to me, it's got to be Scott Kazmir because he was a big time prospect who ended up being a pretty good pitcher. He didn't quite live up to the hype, but he was a really good pitcher. And he was like 20 something, like early 20 somethings. And you trade him for basically 2 bottom of the rotation starters. Why? Why? You want to shake something. Like, how could you do that? How could you do that? Come on, man. Doesn't make sense. So that has to be number one. Number two, this is where it gets hard because they're all kind of awful. Number two, I'm going to go ahead and say Jason Bay. That was a mess. Number three, Jed Lowry. He had one decent year. Number four, let's go with Robbie Alomar. That was a great acquisition that worked out terribly. So the trade itself wasn't bad, but the way it worked out was. So we're going to go with that at number four. And number five, I'm going to move Alomar further down. Kaz Matsui has to be number four. I mean, they paid a lot to get him, and he was not good. He was not good. Bad all the way around. I'm going to move that to number three. I'm going to move Lowry to four because it was less consequential. Number five, you know what? Robbie Alomar is off the hook because at the time it made sense. Now, Diaz, the acquisition of Diaz, well, of course, he had missed a year. So really, in his third year with the Mets, he had a terrible year one, a legendary year two, and a non-year three. So the jury's still out on this. But as it stands right now, the prospect, Kalinick, I believe was the name, that the Mets traded to Seattle for Edwin Diaz and Robinson Cano's contract, the awfulness of Cano, coupled with the potential really good player that they let go, makes this right now today the fifth worst acquisition. Diaz, if he has another good year or two, can change that and remove this off the list because then it depends how good Kalinick gets as well. But right now, that's on the list because of how awful Cano was and how predictable that was. That's the thing that makes you crazy is how predictable it was because this guy for the last few years was on again and off again with the juice. He got caught a couple of times and you could see it right from the beginning. When he was on the juice, he was really good. When he was off the juice, he was really bad. This is his last few years of his career. Why would you think he wasn't just shot unless he was on the juice? And you traded for him with a number of years left on that big contract, and you traded a really good young player for him. Now, yes, Diaz is an elite closer when healthy. He's not healthy right now. He didn't play well his first year with the Mets. He played great last year. That's why this is on the bubble, and it's not higher. If Diaz was just good, but not great last year, then this would have been higher on my list. It's on the bubble at 5 because it could be removed pending Diaz and how he performs. But right now I'm putting it on there because it was just so stupid. It was just so stupid. So there you go. The top 5 worst Mets moves of all time. Number 1, Scott Kazmir trade. Number 2, we're going with the acquisition of what did we say? We had Kaz Matsui on here. We got the trade for our friend Edwin Diaz, or more Robinson Cano. Mo Vaughn was a bad one. There's so many. You could take your pick. I named about 8 of them. You could put them in order as you want to. The worst one to me, certainly Kazmir. was definitely the worst one. That's certainly the worst one. That's the one that hurts the most. That makes you just go, why? And Jason Bay, that was the one I was forgetting. Yeah, Jason Bay is up there too. He's number 2. Then you can go down the list yourself if you want. That's fine. But those are the top 2. The Casimir trade, the Bay acquisition, and you worry about what's going to happen with Diaz. If he plays well, though, that trade's okay. But right now, it's on the list anyway. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll do some news and notes and wrap up a few minutes early. It's the Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at crazy low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts at over 500 different airlines. Plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best price for you. Call SmartFares today and get ready to see the world with a fat wallet.
800-370-2460. 800-370-2460. 800-370-2460. That's 800-370-2460.
Come on, you watch the news. Be prepared to pay more taxes. Then, if you owe back taxes or haven't filed in a few years, get ready. The IRS, the largest collection agency in the world, will be coming after you with the power to collect taxes by any means they want to. Hey, they can freeze your bank account, your passport, even padlock your business. Oh, good times. Look, if the IRS claims you owe them $5,000 or more in back taxes and they're coming after you, don't panic. Call my friends at Get a Tax Lawyer first. Their job is to negotiate with the IRS and save you money. They're experts at it. That's all they do, and you can trust them. In some cases, they have reduced a $50,000 tax bill to less than $1,000. If you owe the IRS $5,000 or more in back taxes, call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-649-8617. 800-649-8617. 800-649-8617. That's 800-649-8617.
All righty, we're back here on the Gary Ayd Show, here on The Cave. Last 30 minutes or so to go. Great to have you aboard. Gary Ayd here flying solo. Decent number of NBA games to get to this week. A lot of cool stuff, as a matter of fact. Tonight is going to be about 8 games on the schedule, I believe. Let's kind of take a look at some of these real quick. Some of these are pretty good. The best game on the docket tonight is probably Philadelphia at Denver. The problem is there's a lot of potential injuries in this one. Harden and Embiid specifically are both listed on the injury report for Philadelphia as day-to-day. So I guess not a lot. There's 2 really bad ones. Assuming one or both of them actually play, this is a really good game. I mean, this could ostensibly be a finals preview even. And both of these teams are going to be in the mix to represent their conference. So that's this, and it's also, in my opinion, the best one-on-one matchup the NBA has to offer right now in Jokic versus Embiid, if Embiid plays. There's a lot of criticism of Jokic because he's slow, he's this, his defensive liability is blah, blah, blah. I don't know if that's really true or not. But I'll say this. The combination of him and Embiid playing against each other, there's certainly different skill sets there. And watching them go at it, it's going to be really fascinating because, one, Jokic is going to keep Embiid playing in space. And the challenge with guarding Jokic is he puts you in a lot of uncomfortable positions because of his assortment of ball fakes, head fakes, shoulder fakes, up fakes, and his great passing skills and vision. He gets probably more people to commit more fouls in space than any big man I've ever watched. he makes guys commit fouls because he is such a great shooter. He's such a great passer, and he's so crafty that you end up biting and jumping at everything. You do. And what ends up happening is you get in a lot of foul trouble. It's just how it goes. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. So that's going to be a great matchup. Of course, you have Jamal Murray on Denver, who's a great guard. Really love his game. And if Harden plays, that's a cool matchup. Then you have Michael Porter Jr. against Tobias Harris or Tyrese Maxey. The Nuggets might be one weapon short here. If everyone plays, I think Harris could be a difference maker. The problem is this team has never really figured out how to use him effectively all season long. They really haven't. He remains sort of a lost man more times than not, and he's far too good to be that. So that's a game. I got the Nuggets winning this one at home, unless Philly really gets a big game from Harden. But I think this is a game that could go either way. Obviously, a really, really cool matchup. Rest of the games tonight, really not that exciting, unfortunately. Phoenix and Utah would be cool, but pretty much everyone you'd want to watch is either doubtful or not playing in this game. We know Kevin Durant's out. Ayton is doubtful still. And on Utah's side, Marketing, Clarkson, and Colin Sexton are all doubtful. So this game goes from like cool to like not interesting with all those names out. And this is a problem right now in the NBA. And we'll get to that in a second. The last game I wanted to call out real quick, though, first is Minnesota and Sacramento. This game could be mildly interesting. They've played tough games against each other all year. The Timberwolves won 2 of the first 3, but most of them have been pretty close, if I recall. And both teams are, in that jumbled up West. Kings further ahead, obviously, but Timberwolves battling for those bottom playoff spots, those play-in spots. So this game could be really fun. So this might be an interesting game. But getting back to the problem with the NBA right now, everyone knows the load management thing. We all know that. But kind of baked into that and sort of a symptom of that larger problem, of that more central issue, NBA injury reports and what they mean are really, really up in the air right now. One of the other things we do here at Cave Talk Radio is Rich and I produce a daily podcast for a company in Wisconsin called Broken Control Media. And essentially, we put together a sheet every day, a data sheet every day, and do game reads, game previews for every NBA game every day. And what happens is, one of the things we, of course, try to include in our game preview, which is written the night before and voiced in the morning, is, of course, injuries. But daily, there'll be an injury that's on the report, he ends up playing. There'll be an injury that's not on the report that ends up not playing. It happens all the time. And you feel bad about it because as a professional, you want to be accurate, right? But then you start thinking about it in a broader perspective, from a bigger picture perspective, beyond your own little narrow purpose for it. And you think to yourself, well, what about the first thing, of course, is what about the fans? That's the one we've talked about plenty of times. The in-stadium fans who are buying tickets, maybe it's the only time they're going to see a certain guy play and he doesn't play. Yeah, we know that. That's obvious. And that's terrible. But there's layers to this. Then you wonder about, look, like it or not, sports gambling is an enormous driver of interest and participation and attention to all sports. And the NBA, it's no secret, if they expand again, wants to be in Vegas. I have to tell you, if they're not already, I expect the league to get a lot of pressure from its sports gambling partners and future partners on cleaning up their injury reports, because these type of things monumentally shift how you play these games and what action is seen on what and what lines are provided where. I mean, it's a massive, massive thing. This Phoenix Utah game is a perfect example. Marketing Clarkson, Sexton, doubtful. Durant, Ayton, out and doubtful. Like, are they really not going to play all three of them? Or are they just listing them that way? Joel Embiid and James Harden, day to day. Well, are they out? Or are they not out? I think I read a stat where 20% of the NBA's players were on some type of injury report, most of them listed as day to day, like recently. That's not acceptable. That makes this really, really difficult and really, really hard. And I think the NBA has a problem on their hands with this. I think they have to clean some things up. I do. I don't believe that they're in a sustainable position with the way they report their injuries. I really don't. And it's something that I think has to really be looked at and considered. Maybe you have to put some type of teeth to it where if a guy is listed on the injury report, he has to be out at least X number of games. And then conversely, to protect the players a little bit more, I think you have to say to the owners, okay, and if you list a guy as injured, I'm sorry, the other way around. So to protect the owners, you have to do this. To protect the players, I think you also have to make sure that they're not getting preferential treatment and resting when they could be playing. Because you want guys to play when they're healthy and you want them to only be out when they're actually injured, right? And how you legislate that is tricky because these contracts are guaranteed. Maybe you have to get it where if you're out, your contract's not guaranteed unless you are out with a real significant injury. I don't have an easy answer for this, but you have to figure out a way to get guys playing consistently again, because the answer is not to cut the season. That's not the problem. We're made to believe every day in every sport that modern athletes are bigger, faster, stronger, better conditioned, blah, blah, blah. Well, if that's true, why do they play less? Why are they injured more? Why do pitchers pitch fewer innings and have more Tommy John surgeries? So one of two things isn't true. Either the players aren't bigger, faster, stronger, better, more conditioned, which I believe is probably the case, or people are playing the system, which probably happens a little bit, but I think it's more the former. I think there is a major problem with conditioning here. I think there's a major problem with over specialization, with overexerting the body at a younger age to try to get to that high level, keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak. And I think it's causing earlier breakdown and decay. I do. And I think that maybe more than anyone else, when he's done playing and can share the secrets, LeBron should probably be like the director of player fitness for the NBA. Because he's managed to stay at a high level for so long and has largely been healthy. I know he's had some injuries the last couple of years, but he's largely been healthy. Just an idea. But all right, let's take our last break. We'll come back. We'll wrap things up with a few news and notes. It's the Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave.
Are you like me? You have health insurance, but you don't have dental insurance. Do you need to get to the dentist right away? Maybe you need an implant or some other major service. Well, I found a dental insurance plan that's just right for you. It's called Spirit Dental. Spirit Dental offers a $100 lifetime deductible, a huge network of dentists. And here's the best part. There's no waiting periods. Yeah, that means you can call right now and have real dental insurance for you and your family tomorrow and get that immediate coverage you want. Spirit Dental has plans for just a few dollars a day, up to $5,000 annual maximum, and coverage for implants. Whatever age you are, the dental insurance you need is a free phone call away. Now don't wait, and be sure to ask about Spirit's vision plan. Here's the number: 800-631-9229. 800-631-9229. That's 800-631-9229.
Hey friend, life happens and you need money. What do? You call the special toll-free number we're about to give you. We will send you a link to your phone with details on how you can loan up to $5,000. Couldn't you use $5,000 to pay for your rent, pay grocery bills, get your car repaired, or whatever you need? It's up to you. We don't care. We're just here to lend you the money. And we'll lend people money with good, bad, or no credit at all. Of course, some terms and conditions apply, and you'll see those on the link we're going to send you. So if you need up to $5,000 maybe as soon as the next business day, call this number right now. We will text you a free link with details.
Paid for by Money Mutual. Call 800-586-7112. 800-586-7112. 800-586-7112. That's 800-586-7112.
All righty, we're back here on the Gary Ayd Show. It's great to have you aboard. And we have just a couple of minutes left here on the show. We're going to end out with some news and notes. University of Miami in its first Final Four ever. Congratulations to them. The Cavs clinched a playoff spot with a dominating win over the Houston Rockets. So that's one thing I did wanted to point out. The Cavs, good job by them actually making the playoffs for the first time as an organization, really in decades, that didn't include LeBron James. So really cool stuff. You like the way they've built this organization. You feel good about it. At least I do. I think this is a really good team going forward. I think they'll get better. I think the East is a little loaded right now. It's going to be tough to break through. But I do think they are on the right track. Alan Lazard says the Aaron Rodgers trade rumors were a big part of the reason why he signed with the Jets. Uh-oh. That's pretty funny. Rich Anselmo sent me in the break here. Good words of inspiration. He said, whatever you do, always give 100%, unless you're donating blood. So even on the injured list, he's still making his presence on the show felt. Good stuff. I like it. Of course, Alan Lazard signed with their Jets because of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that makes total sense. I just honestly, I'm getting concerned. Look, I'm not a Jet fan, but when New York teams are good, my show is better. So I like when they're good. And right now, if you're the Jets, you better hope you consummate this pretty soon, right? I mean, it's getting to that point where you get a little concerned, you get a little worried. I'm getting there myself. Because what happens? What if you don't get Aaron Rodgers? What's next? I mean, are you going to get desperate and go after Lamar Jackson and break precedent and set a new precedent and basically set the league back? What's stronger, your desperation to get a quarterback that's been made clear by Woody Johnson, or your loyalty to the solidarity with the owners and the front office types to preserve the precedent of non-fully guaranteed contracts for quarterbacks? That once you break that dam, you're not building it back. That's the thing. If Jackson gets his way, every quarterback that's anywhere near top third of the league or better is going to get a similar contract with similar guarantees, and the money's going to continue to escalate because that's what it does. You can take that to the bank. Well, maybe you shouldn't because you don't want to put that much money in banks these days. That's a different story. But kidding aside, that will happen. And that's why there's so much push from those around them, those around the league and the player side of things, and the media side of things, trying to push this and push this and push this, using Jackson as the tip of the spear, so to speak, to get this through, because they know the long-term ramifications of it. See, if I'm the NFL, what I'm looking at is I need to put into our bylaws, our salary cap structure, whatever, a particular position maximum for quarterbacks as a percentage of the cap, because these salaries continue to run away at that position. The overall salary growth at other positions has not really been out of line. The quarterback salary growth has been crazy. And maybe we'll do a little research on this and have some more on this tomorrow, but that's something that I would be very concerned about if I was the NFL. I really would be. All right, let's see what else we got here. News and notes. Beverly ran his mouth and got below the skin of Davis. We know that. We talked about that. The Grizzlies beat the Atlanta Hawks to kind of keep pace. San Antonio got embarrassed by Boston. I mean, this is big time embarrassment. 137-93. That is awful. It's awful. The Brooklyn Nets lost to the Magic. I told you that was a possibility. This Magic team is weird. They find ways to beat teams that are better than them on a pretty regular basis. Toronto beat Washington. OKC beat Portland. I wasn't surprised about that one. Damian Lillard out the rest of the year. Okay, so their season is over. So yeah, there you go. All right. Well, that will do it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow. It was great to have everyone. We'll see you then. It is the Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave.